Hey y'all, I'm Morgan and welcome back to my channel. Thank you guys so much for joining me today as we are reviewing RR Biddy's, maybe I said that right, The First Binding. This was one of my most anticipated releases for August, so I was super thrilled to be able to push things aside from my TBR and work it in. When I started this book though, my library did not have a physical copy of it, so I started the audio book for it. And I must say that the audio narrator did a wonderful job. But what he did that was really strong is the attitude infliction per character that he could bring out. That's what I think was amazing. But about the day, like the exact day I finished it though, my library was like, hey, we have a copy in, if you still want it. So I went and got it. So it looks good on the video for my TBR stack. And I could organize my notes more. As you can see there's just a big chunky gap there. For those of you who haven't heard about The First Binding, I can read the description for you or just tell you that it is a masterfully woven storytelling. Like, it's just, the whole book revolves around storytelling. And our main character, Ari, even states that, as in, all legends are born of truths and just as much lies. These are mine, judge me for what you will, but you will hear my story first. My name is Ari, and this is the story of how I let loose the first evil. So from the beginning, we mostly are just, you think it's only going to be a one-person narration, you're only going to see through Ari's eyes. But you do actually end up seeing through two characters' eyes as you begin to see through Elowen, which, that's not her real name. I don't think we ever find out what her real name is. But she is a different type of peoples. She's more like what we would think of as a gypsy, a wanderer. You see how she's a songstress in when they first meet and how she weaves this story, and it was just incredible. And Ari is immediately captivated by her, and he begins to, you know, try to figure out more about her, but since she won't tell him his name, he gives her a name instead and he calls her Elowen. Eventually, we do see through Elowen's eyes, but it is only a very narrow portion. It leaves her character in still a huge, huge mystery. You only get to see a little bit of what she's trying to do. Like, she's not trying to do anything against Ari. She's genuinely captivated by him. She wants to figure him out. She wants to find out the truth about him. Because in this world, he is now known as the storyteller. Nobody knows his real name because his real name is associated in some form or fashion with so many great legends, and she has put the pieces together enough to recognize his name in various forms across these. And she even tells him, she's like, well, what if all these people from the great stories are really actually only one person, and I believe that person is you. And so she kind of weasels it out of him to tell her his story, and that's when we first get into how the story goes from there, as flashing back from this current point in time of Ari's unknown age back to when he was a child, because he kind of goes back to when his story first started. And you never find out how old he is though. Like, at any point in time, he does not say how old he is. But it's super interesting because you start with Ari's perspective when he was living in a theater as an orphan, but he had been taken in by the theater owner and by the theater troupe, and they became his family. And even though, you know, money was tight and everything, this man cared very deeply for Ari. Why the theater troupe had no money is because there's a caste system where if you are sullied, you are undesirable, you cannot get good paying jobs, you're pretty much a slave, you're lower than like the merchants, the traders, anything. They can beat you, rob you. Yeah, it's very bad. And the theater troupe were this low class, and Ari, as an orphan, he was like the lowest of the low. Ari though, as his child self, was a very, very clever child, much to the detriment of his mouth and things he said, and that only got him in more trouble. I did like how every now and then, you know, it would come back to the present, and the storyline at the present would progress a little bit before he would pick back up his tale with Elowen. And the storyline at the present, he's got a goal and he's trying to do something for the world at large, kind of, but also for his stories. And it was just, yeah, I liked both storylines, kind of. Of course, the one in his past, we got more details and more movement from, and it was a bit more engaging, because at the present, it was just, you know, maybe over the span of just a day, 3 days maybe. But the past, you know, we span years of his childhood as he's growing, as he's learning. So yeah, there was more happening in the past than the present, but the present is definitely playing a part of the storyline and what's going to happen with the future books, of course. But what you see of all of Ari's life, the biggest, most important thing throughout his whole life, like he never lets go of that, is the importance of stories. Like, you don't get so much world building here in this book. Like, I would love way more world building, of course. That's like my favorite thing in fantasies. But the stories are kind of what lays the foundation for that, though. Because all of the stories normally revolve around heroes and gods, the various different ones as he's in different regions. But the morals of the stories and the way that they're told, things will come back to you later in the story. I mean, in the book, not the little stories. Things from the stories, even just children's tales, children's rhymes that you hear throughout the book, they come back and you're like, oh my God, oh my gosh, that was a thing. That was a thing. And did he not pick up on that thing? Because I see that thing. That connects to here. Like, there was one point I wanted to smack something. I was like, how? She just spelled it out for you. How did you not connect these dots? That's probably my favorite part about the setup of this book. While the writing was awesome, I loved the storytelling aspect of it. I love how the stories were woven throughout the past and the present, and the importance of the stories through Ari's narrative as well. Like how it shaped his life, how the correlations between these stories he was learning were piecing together parts of things that were happening to him as well. Really, really shows the importance of storytelling, both in, you know, our own world and this world, as that is how things have been passed down. Lessons, you know, naughty children, don't do this because this will happen to you, or history even. And the depth that he put into some of these stories for their gods, it was just, he did a beautiful job, I think. So the magic system in this is a bit different. You don't get to see it too much, but they call it binding. And what it seems to be is you're binding your objects to do your will. Like, for his first teacher was like throwing rocks at him. And he said, you know, can you figure it out how to stop the rock from hitting you? It does have words, like just a few words that you speak, but it's mostly like using your mind, folding your mind, as they call it, around what you want to happen, seeing something else happen, believing it, forcing it to be true. So pretty much, you know, your force of will binds these things to do as you will. So you don't get to see too much of magic-y magic in the book, but you get a lot of the lore around it and a fairish amount of explanation around it and how it's used in various things. And you do get to kind of see Ari do it a little bit. I don't think I said any too big spoilers at this point so far, so hopefully everybody's okay with only what was said so far. I don't have very many spoilers. You would think with a book this size we could say some spoilers, but I will chapter it here though to say the little bit of spoilers that I have, and you can cut to the end for the final rating if you would like. As Ari explains to Eowyn and everything, and why she really wheedles him into telling her his story, because all of his stories and what he says is now, he's telling her the truth, have been changed, and he encouraged the change and the growth and the outlandishness of even of his own stories. How the stories even came about in like the simplest of ways, accidental ways even. And he just fanned the flames because as somebody who had been beaten and an orphan, he wanted, he wanted to be feared and to be known. And now he's finally, as an adult realizing, he's distanced himself kind of from that because it's hard. And he's telling her the truth though, Mostly because he does want at least one person to know the truth, that she was smart enough to figure it out and ask for the real story. He respects her for that, and of course, you know, he thinks she's beautiful and stuff. And he wants to get a story out of her, because she sang a song, as what her people do, the songs, they sing songs instead of say stories. And she sang one he'd never heard before, and that alluded to like there's more to it. So he wants something from her in return to piece together a story that he's been hunting down. The stories were relating to Ari's life, as in like big details were like, okay, in the children's song, you know, you'll know the demons are coming, the Ashari? I don't remember what they're called now. Were coming because the crops would die, the cattle would die, people would bleed from their eyes. And when Ari's first family, you know, he found them all murdered in the theater, their eyes were all bloody. Like, that was not how they died. They were like stabbed and stuff, but they were bleeding from their eyes. And later on, when he's an adult and he's encountering this duchess, and she's telling him of a tale of their god's son, and how, you know, he was killed, and when he came back from the dead to enact vengeance and stuff on the people who had doubted that he was, you know, their god's son, he made them bleed from the eyes, as he had done when he died. Hello? I mean, really? That there's a sign there. There's a correlation there. There really, really is. Can't believe that Ari didn't grow from some of his mistakes. I guess teenage boys, it just takes a lot for that to happen. I don't know. But he definitely did things more than once. Not exactly the same things, but things, you know, he'd been warned against. Things he had seen minor consequences for. And yet he still did things. The last thing that really got him in trouble right there at the end of the book, where it ended his past story before he jumped back to the final part of the present. I do get why he did that. He kind of just snapped. He was trying to protect a kitten, and he just couldn't take it anymore. And he noticed something else that it was like, it broke his mind a little bit, and then he just snapped, and all of a sudden he could control fire. And that was his first binding. He binded fire. And Ari's story, the way it stops from his past to his present, is a huge gap, as there will be one character that does come in at a point, and you're like, where is this person from? Now, this storyline, we have to have it continued, because something obviously happens to where this can connect. And I need to understand. And then the last thing was the ending. The ending that took place at, we'll say, the present for Ari at his, you know, his current age. It just kind of happened. Spoilers, stuff's done and everything. So overall, I give this book a 4.25 because I really, really enjoyed the aspect of the storytelling, how important it was through the book, how it connected everything that we read, Ari's life, how beautiful and in-depth it was, even though it didn't have my world building, how much we learned from these stories, and just, yes, it was beautiful. And I loved Ari as a character. Elowen was kind of nice. I would like to get to know more about her. We got a little bit about her, but not very much. Still not sure what's going on with her exactly. And those are the only two characters we really got to know about. You've learned about some people from Ari's past, at different stages of his past. But because it was at different stages, it's hard, you know, you're not really connected. You didn't get too much depth to them. We'll see how that continues, though, what goes with that in the next book. So yeah, I'm very excited to get this series continued. Like, I don't know when the next book's coming out. I'm gonna look it up. There's probably no date, because with fantasy series like this, you know, there could be years between it, which would be sad, because I need to know why that happened at the end of the book and how he's gonna get out of it. Because of course he has to get out of it. There's gonna be a way for him to get out of it, of course. So I'm excited to continue this one. I highly recommend this one for anybody who likes high fantasy, or if you liked Name of the Wind. It's along the same vein, but a little bit different. Yeah, Ari's just a better character, I think, kind of. I don't know. I just like him better than Kavoth at this point. Alright, I'm gonna wrap this one up because I'm losing feeling in my foot and I just need to go. I hope that you have enjoyed this and you might consider seeing some of my other ones. I have other vlogs, reviews, unboxings, general bookish content. I hope you grabbed this book because it was awesome. I hope that I didn't spoil too much. I don't think I did, or that I wasn't too vague in it either. So I really hope you guys liked it. And I really, really hope that you guys are finding something awesome to read today, this week, this month, as we are now in September. And I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.